Earlier this week, the Supreme Court came out with the judgment on the Sree Padmanabha Swamy Temple in Kerala. It upheld the rights of the royal family to manage the affairs of the temple, which was against the judgment which was given in 2011 by the Kerala High Court. The judgment that came out in 2011, it gave the control of the temple to the state government. Of course, the royal family challenged it. And now, in 2020, the Supreme Court has given back the rights to the royal family. This is one judgment, and this is what we're going to talk about today, along with the management of temples in India, the entire temple ecosystem in India, how it's managed, the funds, the money, where it comes from, where it goes, how it's spent, who is the one spending them. But before we go there, we need to look at a news report from the Associated Press that was carried out last week. This is about the US Roman Catholic Church, one with 1 billion of followers, perhaps more than 1 billion of followers, a lot of money. What was the news all about? That they tapped into government money. They tapped into money that was backed by the taxpayer, that was meant for the coronavirus outbreak relief funds for the businesses, for people who have been thrown out of jobs by the unpredictable nature of the coronavirus outbreak. Now, as per the report by the Associated Press, the church could get access to as much as $3.5 billion of taxpayer money, the taxpayer-aided loans that were coming for the other businesses and people. How did that happen? Well, one, the houses of worship or faith-based religious organizations, if you look at the eligibility, first of all, they're not eligible for this kind of money in the United States. The federal rules do not allow the churches to tap into this amount of money, somewhere between $1.4 billion and $3.5 billion. So how did they manage to do it? Well, as soon as the coronavirus broke out, there was this Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, the size of which was somewhere in the neighborhood of $659 billion. It was meant for the people, it was meant for the businesses. But somehow, the houses of worship, the church, they could get the help from the Congress in the United States to get that money. Why did they need that money, first of all? Well, a lot of these dioceses to whom these loans are going at very, very cheap interest rates, they want to pay out the claims that they are settling because of the cases that have been filed against them of child abuse, of sexual abuse, of immoral conduct, the ones that have been making headlines for a while now. Some of them are also struggling through bankruptcy and they want to pay off the bills to the banks again. So in a way, the church, which has billions and billions of dollars already, they have huge piles of money they are sitting on. They're actually using the American taxpayer, the average Joe, to sponsor their own bankruptcy, to pay off their own bankruptcy, to pay off the victims they are fighting cases against. Now, how did that happen? If the eligibility was a problem, how did the church manage to get through this kind of money, this size of sizable funds? For instance, the Archdiocese of New York, he received 15 loans worth rupees $28 million. The St. Patrick's Avenue on the St. Patrick's Church on the 5th Avenue, a very famous church, it got a loan worth $1 million. If the analysis of the federal data by Associated Press is to be believed, more than 3,000 such dioceses received loans. So how did they manage to jump around the eligibility to get access to these funds? Well, for one, they could lobby around the White House. They could lobby with Donald Trump, the President of the United States, make sure that the rules that prevented the funds from reaching them were changed. They were exempted from those rules. To give you an example, the loans that were given out under PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, they did not allow the loans to be given to any organization which had more than 500 employees. Now, with church, with all their employees, they normally constitute more than 500 people. So it's not very unusual for an archdiocese to have more than 500 people working for him or her. But even then, they could get the money coming through to them. And hence that money was paid for the settlement of sexual assault claims in the court and so forth. Now, this is one example from the United States of America on how the church tapped into taxpayer-backed loans. They got the taxpayer to sponsor themselves, even though they're sitting on piles of cash. countless cash, unimaginable amount of money. That's one example. Now let's come back to India. We saw the judgment from the Supreme Court on the Sree Padmanabha Swamy Temple. We saw that the royal family was finally given a voting right into the administrative committee that has been formed, that will have people also from the state government. It will also have people from the central government. But that's just one judgment. That's just one temple. India is home to thousands and thousands of temples. And for long, all these temples have been under state control. And what this has resulted in two big things. One, the mismanagement of the funds, which is under the temple. For a long time now, the funds which are available with the temple, they have been used with great opaqueness by the state governments. Often they have been used for infrastructure building around the temple, as we've covered in a lot of Swarajya stories so far. If you go on the site, we've covered a lot of issues where certain temples' land has been encroached upon, and then the government has taken over the land, leased it out to some other organization which doesn't even cater to the interests of the temple or the Hindu as a whole. The second problem is many of the temples, especially if you go down to Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they are very old. Even in Uttarakhand, for instance, these are temples which are thousands and thousands of years old. The kind of conservation they warrant, the preservation they warrant, it's very intricate, it's very delicate. And often we see that the walls are whitewashed, the paintings over there are damaged, the inscriptions there are damaged. And there is no urgent care taken by the state government, which puts the temple management into further problems. This is the kind of problems that temples in India face. But it's not just about temples in India. Compare it with the other places of worship in India, say a mosque, say a church or a gurudwara. Are the rules for all the places of worship same in India? No, they are not. To give you an example, are the places of worship controlled by the state's government in India? Yes, but only temples. Can any state government take over a place of worship at any point in time? Yes, but only for temples. Can the government step in and manage the finances of any places of worship? Yes, it can, but only for temples. So in a way, we see that temples in India are made to follow a certain set of rules the other places of worship are exempted from. Now, this is, of course, inconsistent with the ethos of the Constitution. This is inconsistent with everything that comes under, say, Article 30 of the Constitution, which deals with the management of religious institutions. But yet, the states and the central government for so long have not given up their control of the temples. And this is where the judgment by the Supreme Court on the Sree Padmanabha Swamy Temple holds a flicker of hope. That yes, this government now are running away from the management of the temples. And yes, the administrative committees which are made by the temple themselves, the funds which are with the temple, they can be better managed. The operational efficiency of the temples can increase. Now compare this back with the US Roman Catholic Church, the two secular countries, as we say, the United States, where the church is using money meant for the taxpayers. And look at it in India, where Kerala, where Tamil Nadu, all these state governments have tried tapping into the monetary resources of the temples to sponsor programs, monetary programs, financial programs for people after the coronavirus broke out. Compare this, and obviously we need to think how the management of our temples needs to go as we go forward. For how long can they still be under state control, under wrongful state control, and when our temples can finally be free? Thank you so much.